When people say offshore accounts, what are they really trying to protect?
So a lot of people just think, oh, I just register my company somewhere else. I don't have to pay tax. And that's like common, but it's just a misconception. I remember years ago, I had this Russian client. He was in the crypto space and he wanted to register a couple of offshore companies. And I'm like, okay, I'll register a couple of companies for you. Full disclaimer, like you have to report them and all this. He's, yeah, I'll take care of that.
What's your top 5 list of things that an entrepreneur should be thinking about in terms of protecting themselves?
Litigation and taxation. I mean, that's the 2 main things that's going to steal your wealth. I think one of the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs make is not taking.
I'm Garrett Wong, and this is the Investing to Win podcast. How do you define success, and what does winning look like for you? And so before we get into your bio, I want to create a little bit of mystery. When people say offshore accounts, what are they really trying to protect? Is it kind of like taxes, lawsuits, ex-spouses, governments, their own bad decisions? What would you say just right out of the hop like that?
I would say probably all of that. Like, reasonably, like most people, when they say, I really want to take my business offshore, normally what they're trying to do is tax optimization. But it depends. Like, I've been doing this for a long time, and so people do have different reasons. Sometimes it is tax optimization, and sometimes people have a misunderstanding of what that means to,
right.
And they just think, oh, I can, I'm Canadian living in Toronto, and I'll just register an offshore company, and I don't have to pay tax in Canada anymore. Well, that's not really true. I mean, it can be, but it's illegal. Like you can do that, sure, but like it's definitely not a legal thing to do. So a lot of people just think, oh, I just register my company somewhere else. I don't have to pay tax in my home country, in Canada anymore. That's like common, but it's just a misconception. And then there's some people, like I remember years ago, I had this Russian client. He was in the crypto space. I'm not going to mention a name because the guy is in the crypto space is extremely well known. Is a Russian guy. And he wanted to register a couple of offshore companies. But the thing is, Russia already has a very low tax rate anyway. Like, he had zero tax benefit, almost zero tax benefit to do offshore. For him, it was all about this like coolness factor of being offshore. It's like he wanted
just say, I have an offshore account. Yeah,
he wanted to seem sketchier than he really was. And I thought that one was pretty funny because like he was in the crypto space, Russian guy. He had this, demeanor like he was like this. Okay, I don't want to say oligarch because he wasn't that wealthy, but like he was a pretty wealthy Russian guy in the crypto space, and he just really wanted the perception of doing shady things. And I'm like, but we don't need to do shady things in your situation. He goes, yeah, but I want to. And I'm like, okay, I'll register a couple of companies for you. Full disclaimer, like you have to report them and all this. And he's like, yeah, I'll take care of that. So
that's so
some
funny.
People just have that. And then an asset protection is one of the bigger things that people want to use offshore structures for. But that's mainly offshore trusts and private interest foundations. And there is a tremendous advantage for using offshore structures for asset protection and estate planning. So there is a huge advantage for that.
Let's, now that we gave the audience a teaser on what we're going to be talking about today, which is asset protection, let's go into your background. Why don't you give the audience a 30-second sort of brief intro, and then we can dig into that as well.
Sure. American, originally from North Carolina, grew up in an entrepreneurial family, never had a real job, always had my own business. Started my first real business when I was 19. It kind of fell apart. Started another one when I was 20 that fell apart. Started another one when I was 21 that did pretty well that I ended up selling when I was around 33. During that time, I'd started a couple of other businesses. Actually, I'd bought a few businesses and rolled them into that company. I had another business in there. I bought and sold a restaurant. I had a real estate development business during that same period. And I ended up getting a bit uncomfortable with my own structure, like from an asset protection standpoint and from also a taxation standpoint, thinking things weren't well optimized and I was kind of exposed with a lot of things I was doing. And so I hired somebody like me to help me do what I do for other people now. And we developed a pretty good relationship. We set up a structure for me. And at that time, still to this day, actually, all of my friends have their own businesses. I don't have friends with jobs. I just never really.
That's interesting.
I was never in that circle. I really don't know anybody that has like a normal job. Everybody I know has their own company, or they're at least like a solopreneur or a freelancer. I don't really know anybody with normal jobs because my lifestyles. I live in 3 different countries. I travel all the time. I do a lot of adventure stuff. I race motorcycles and stuff like that. And so you can't really just call up your buddy that works, he's an accountant for the local construction company and say, hey, you want to ride motorcycles on Wednesday morning? Because you can't. But all my entrepreneur buddies can do that. Or hey, you wanna fly with me next Tuesday to Argentina? Let's go for a week to Argentina. Most of my friends are like, maybe they can or can't because of other reasons, but job is not one of those limitations for them. They don't have that.
I find that fascinating when you talk about your, first business at 19, second at 20, failures, and yet all of your friends right now are all entrepreneurs. And I've got a mixture, and to tell you the truth, I don't have a lot of time to socialize. So, I get my sort of fix there when I go to business conferences and I'm leveling up with people, obviously entrepreneurs. So given that you, to your words, you never had a real job, what was your mindset back then of like you graduated and right at 19, like what was that business that you opened up at 19?
I was just, and I'm 51 years old, Garrett. I can't remember all this stuff. I don't remember what I ate for breakfast.
I'm 54. So, no, if you don't want to say it's fine, but unless it was sketchy.
I was selling and reselling products, just like arbitrage kind of thing.
All right.
And then 20 was like a landscaping type business that.
Okay.
Basically, the landscape business kind of fell apart because I ended up cutting myself twice with a chainsaw, and I realized.
Oh wow!
I realized maybe this is not a long-term business for me to be in. Maybe I need to be in a business that uses my brain instead of my body for everything. So,
but those early, like I've been doing this, I've been an entrepreneur for now 29 years. As I said, 54 years old. So you can kind of do the math. Like I was an educator, my story is that I was 6 months away from graduating with a PhD in molecular biology before I made my pivot, bought my first rental property, built up a large rental portfolio in 10 years, all while working another full-time job as a backup. But I have had my share of failures, and you talk about these failures, and then that kind of shaped you into this protection mindset and trying to make sure that your assets are protected in exits or if the worst thing can happen. Would you say it's fair that those 2 first failures kind of shaped, because the third time's a charm, all of a sudden you said you had this business that you were able to run for quite some time and then you had an exit. Can you tell us about that?
Garrett, I'm an entrepreneur. Every single day is a failure.
That is true.
Every single day is a failure. We roll out a new product and nobody buys it. It's a failure. I hire a new employee who turns out is a terrible employee. It's a failure. That's the whole thing with entrepreneurship. All you're doing is you're laddering from failure to failure, and hopefully you're working your way up that ladder and you get a little bit better every time. But entrepreneurship is nothing more than, moving from failure to failure. That's it. Like
Yeah.
anybody that has this glorified concept of entrepreneurship is I start my business and six months later I'm driving a Lamborghini. They're out of their mind. Like,
Well, you must have met them on Instagram.
yes,
Tons of billionaires on Instagram.
exactly. Yeah. Well, most of the Instagram influencers on there sitting on the hood of a Lamborghini, with three hot girls wearing a Rolex. Most of those guys, they rented the Lamborghini, borrowed the Rolex, and hired the girls for a photo shoot. Like they're not. It's a fake persona. It doesn't exist.
And now you can do it with AI, right?
Yeah, right, right. Now you don't even need the real people. You can create that. So yeah, it's basically entrepreneurship is just moving from failure to failure and hoping you get a little bit better every time and you learn something from it. So that's why I say, like, I personally have never had a real job because I was raised in an entrepreneurial family. My grandpa had a chain of restaurants. My dad had a construction company. And for me, it was never the idea that I was going to like go down the corporate world path. Like that was never even like originally the idea was when I finished school, I was going to go work for my dad in the construction company and help run the business and then take it over. But I'm so independent minded. I didn't even want that. I didn't even want to work for him even for one day. Like I said, I'm going to do my own thing. I was very, very stubborn and independent minded, which, by the way, can be a good thing. It can also hurt you.
Sure.
In hindsight, maybe like I look back and think maybe I should have went and worked for him for a few years to get a bit more experience and understanding about business and all those things. But it is what it is. And, I am the product of every decision I've made up until this point, and I kind of like where I'm at now. So I can't complain about how I got here either. But you asked me what got me to the point to do what I'm doing now. And it actually happened back in 2005 or 6 or somewhere around there when I hired the guy like me to help me. I had 3 businesses at the time, and I felt overly exposed, and I hired a guy to help me protect my assets because I thought I was overly exposed. And I just had a couple of moments where I was like, I really need to do something about this. If I were to get sued, I'm too exposed here, or, I'm paying too much in tax and all this stuff. So I hired this guy. That guy ended up kind of becoming my mentor. And because all my friends were entrepreneurs, I went to him and said, hey, why don't I bring in a few new customers? We'll work together on them, and I'll work as like a consultant with you. And so that's kind of how I got started what I'm doing now. Not kind of. That's exactly how I got started doing what I'm doing now. But it was kind of an informal thing for a while. And then I sold those other businesses in around 2007, 6 or 7. I forget, 6, I think. I realized I didn't really like what was going on in my life. I hated my business. I hated all my employees. I hated my customers. I hated everything. Like I just like
that's part of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And I'm like, I just don't like what I'm doing, and so I need to change and I need to do something different. And so I kind of had a defining moment where I said, hey, let's think about my future. And so at that moment, I decided to sell that company. And I wanted to, the consulting thing I really enjoyed because I like working with entrepreneurs. I like entrepreneurs as a customer base. I like entrepreneurs as friends. I like entrepreneurs as mentors. I like those type of people. And so having them as customers was perfect. And, a lot of other variables went into that. But that's kind of how I got into the process of what I'm doing now.
One thing that you had said that resonated with me, Bobby. So 2 weeks ago now, it wasn't, I went to Florida in West Palm Beach and met Tommy Hilfiger, and at the event saw, including myself, but some people being coached. And it's very interesting because there was this young lady there, like late 20s, trying to make it in the fashion world, had her own label and just struggling. And he actually gave her advice to go back into retail. right? And she couldn't believe it. But he basically sort of said, okay, well, your idea is good, but you don't have enough money to be able to, to get it out there and convince people that it's a better idea. And just said, go back to retail, work it for a year or two, and really get in touch with your customers to be able to see what they want, what kind of fabric they want, what kind of colors, what do they like, right? And he said, I promise you, if you do that, you're going to sort of reinvent yourself, and then you're going to figure out what you want to do. So,
Yeah.
The fact that you're just talking about that whole journey and that process really resonated with me on that.
It's funny you bring that up. One of my best friends, and we've off and on been business partners in other ventures over the years. He came to me several years ago, and he didn't really like what he was doing, and he really wanted to get into like the personal development space. He'd always been like a big fan of like Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins and Dale Carnegie and all like the big names in personal development space. And he was like, I really want to get into this space. Like he's a great public speaker. He had a lot going on, but he was just kind of stuck. And I said, well, why don't you just go work for one of the big guys for a little bit and like just learn the business? And then, like that's going to be the best way. If you want to learn how to be
100%.
the best in the business, go work for the best in the business. And that's what he did. He went and worked for Tony Robbins. He became the national sales trainer for Tony Robbins.
Okay.
And he worked for Tony for a couple of years, 3 or 4 years, maybe 4 years, I think. And, now he does great. He's out on his own. He's got his own program going, and he has an amazing thing going. But that was he had to take a step backwards because like he was kind of the same mindset. Like, I don't want a job. I don't want a regular job. Like, this is nonsense. I don't want to go work for somebody else. But working for Tony worked really well for him because, first of all, I mean, you're completely autonomous. Like you're not going into an office. You're traveling around.
No, you're an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, an entrepreneur. Yeah, that's a good term for it. Yeah, you're an entrepreneur, and like it really helped him refocus and like understand exactly what he was trying to get himself into.
Well, plus the credibility, right? I mean, there's a reason just of itself to be able to train. And you said it yourself, Bobby, is you had this person that you hired and took him on as a mentor. I think we all need mentors. Otherwise, the failures that we go through as an entrepreneur, all you're going to do is just bang your head against the wall. Like Einstein had said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing twice and expecting a different result, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm a firm believer. I'm sure you've heard this quote before, but I'm a firm believer in, the quote, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Me too.
And I look at it like this, you think about it like when you're growing up, you come through high school, you're 18 years old, you graduate high school. And what normally happens? You hang out with all your old high school buddies, right?
Yeah.
And during that kind of transition period, you're 18, 19, 20, and you're still kind of hanging out with all your old high school buddies. And maybe some of them are great. Maybe some of them are high achievers, and maybe some of them have like a big future ahead of them. But then you got some of them who were, the joke is like you peaked in high school. Like maybe you were the college,
sure.
or not college, the high school quarterback on the
athlete
team, and you peaked. That was it. That's your pinnacle of success, was your senior year when you were the quarterback and the prom king. And now you're just kind of like, you're an alcoholic, and you're waiting tables at Applebee's, and like you're not doing much with your life, but they're still your buddies, right? You're like, but I grew up with Tommy or Joey or whatever. And I look at it like this: you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. The sooner you realize that, the faster you're going to be on a growth trajectory, because you're going to be the average of those 5 people, whether you passively accept who you hang out with or you actively choose who you hang out with. Either way, you're going to end up being the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Like, like passively, if all your buddies drink beer and play golf every Saturday and mow the yard on Sunday and, watch football on Monday and all your buddies do that,
Yeah.
you're probably going to play golf and mow the yard and watch football
Yeah.
unless you go out and actively find a group of people that you want to emulate. And if you just shift your time engagement away from group A to group B, it's just going to improve your life as long as group B is an improvement. You know what I mean? And you either do it passively or you actively find that group. And for me, like I didn't really start actively going after those groups. I mean, I'm stupid. I've made countless mistakes. I probably didn't start that process until my late 20s.
Right.
But now, like for example, I host every year. Actually, it's coming up in like 2 weeks. I host an annual mastermind retreat. All entrepreneurs from all over the world, and this is like my go-to audience. Like we do the retreat once a year, but we're in a community, and so we physically meet up once a year. Everyone as a group. But during the course of the year, these are still the people, these are my go-to resources for like if I have I don't know, a marketing question, I go to somebody in that group and say, hey, can you help me fix this? Or I've got a problem with Google Ads, or I've got a problem, with team organization or raising money or something. There's somebody in that group. And like during the course of the year, we all do like informal retreats, let's say. Like I've got a wedding in May that I'm going to. One of the girls in the group is getting married, and there's like 10 of us from this group going to her wedding. Stuff like that. Like last Christmas, we had 20 people over at our place here in Mexico. 20 people from this group all came over for like a Christmas party. So they're not like our masterminds exactly, but
I mean, you're making relationships are probably 70% of what an entrepreneur should be concentrating on, right?
Yeah.
And leveling up. And just moving back to your original point, I've seen people, and if you're listening to this audience and this is you, just kind of give your head a little bit of a shake. I mean, no offense at it, but you could lose a decade doing what Bobby just said. Working, coming home, popping a beer, watching football, rinse and repeat, living for the weekend. All of a sudden, maybe you got a decent job at 20 and now you're 30 years old and you're going, what am I doing? Like, I don't have enough money to retire. I can't do anything. And then my next point is, I mean, I have friends and I love them, but they puff you up, right? Oh, you're a successful entrepreneur. It must be nice. Like they don't see the failures and the heartache and the stress, right? Oh, right place, right time, or you're so lucky. Like anybody who's a true entrepreneur knows it's not luck. You bust your ass, you grind it out, and you fail again. And then maybe, just maybe, you were able to push something over the goal line, right?
Right. I was laughing because you talk about that, the people that like puff you up. And usually the people that puff you up, they shouldn't be in your top 5. Let me put it that way. I don't know how else to put that. The people that puff you up are kind of like your old high school buddies that aren't doing very well, and they see you doing well, and they're like, man, I'm so jealous. You got it made. Your life is amazing. Like I live in 3 different countries. I live a block from the beach in the wintertime in Mexico. Amazing place to live. I've got a home in Europe. I live in Europe like during the summertime. I've got an incredible life. And you know what percentage of that was luck?
0%.
0% of that was luck. But like if I talk to one of my old like high school buddies, if I'm back in my hometown, they're like, my God, you're so lucky. You had such an amazing experience. Or like I came from a fairly wealthy family. Sometimes they say, oh, you're so fortunate. Like,
must be nice.
It must be nice that your dad gave you all that money. Like, bro, are you kidding? Like my dad never gave me a penny. Like I've never seen a penny. Like I was making car payments when I was 16. Like
me too.
I never got a penny of my dad's money. Like I do remember one time when I was like 19, and my dad loaned me like $2,000 to buy tools for that first business, which I paid him back like in 3 months. That was
Yeah.
the only time I ever saw money like from that. It was like 2 grand. But those people that puff you up, they don't, like you said, to your point, they don't understand. My circle of five, or the guys that come to like my mastermind retreat, they're not really the guys that puff you up. Like, they'll puff you up in the sense that that's great. Your business is up 22% this year. That's amazing, Garrett. You've done a great job. Your business is up 22% this year. But why are you not doing this? Are you stupid? What's wrong with you? Like,
Yeah. No, that's exactly it. They say the truth, right?
I love being the dumbest guy in the room. And
Well, that's what I was going to say.
You end up being the smart
Yeah.
guy in the room. And I hate being the smart guy in the room.
If you're an entrepreneur and you don't have imposter syndrome on a regular basis, you're not doing something right. Right? No, I'm serious. So I got involved in.
This is true.
Yeah, I got involved in this group about, I guess, a year ago. Went to this big event. It's 2,000 people there, 79 countries, some of the most successful people. And I thought I was fairly successful, 3 businesses, 29 years as an entrepreneur. And I called my wife and I'm just like, I don't know if I belong here. Like, these people have millions and millions. And then I meet Kevin Costner and he's on stage and he brought me down back to earth, because he said, people don't know, like, I don't want to butcher the quote. He said, you're not an entrepreneur until you roll over at night and say to your spouse, sweetheart, we're not going to be able to pay ourselves this month.
Right.
He said, that's an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
right? And then from then on, I was just like, okay, this is my tribe. I'm going to keep trying to level up. I go, travel all around the world now. I was at the Sydney Opera House doing a keynote in August. And every time I go, I'm living my life because I love traveling, but I can mix travel with business. And then I'm starting to make these friends all around the world. And when I go there, I just get such energy to be able to come back and then keep grinding for another quarter or whatever it is. So it's been really good.
Yeah. Yeah. I hate being, like I said, I hate being the smartest person in the room. And that's always, it's an uncomfortable situation. If you're in a room or you're in a group and everyone's looking to you for information, I know I'm in the wrong place. I'm like, whoa, yeah. I'm not leveling up if I'm the top, and I need to be like even in my business, I intentionally try to hire people smarter than me. And
100%.
I remember years ago when one of my other companies, I had an office manager who she was responsible for hiring like office staff, like admin people in the office, and I noticed that she was hiring people. This is funny, actually, in 2 ways. Number one, she wouldn't hire anybody prettier than her. And number two, she wouldn't hire anybody smarter than her, because she felt intimidated if they were prettier or smarter than her. And I noticed after like a while, and I'm like, we're not really hiring good performers here in the office. And so I went and talked to her about it, and we just analyzed it. I'm like, her name was Wendy. I'm like, what is going on, Wendy? Like, why are you hiring these people? Like, they're not very good. And because I would see some of the other people that were applying coming in, but they would interview with her first. They would interview with me later if they got past her. But if they were too pretty or too smart, they never got past her. She would always find like something to discredit them with. And I had to go back to Wendy and be like, this is stupid. Like, why are you not trying to hire people smarter than you? I don't care if they're better looking, but why are you not trying to hire people smarter than you? And she straight up told me. She directly told me. She goes, well, I'm afraid if I hire somebody smarter than me, you're going to realize like maybe you don't need me and you'll replace me with one of the other people. She told me that directly, which
wow.
in a sense was good that she, was transparent enough to say that. And I told her, I said, you don't understand the mindset here. The fact that you're hiring people dumber than you makes me think you're not that good. If you hire people smarter than you, you actually level up to me that you're smart enough to hire people that are better than
Right.
you on other things. And she's like, oh.
Yeah. We've been talking about a lot of background and stuff, but I want to transition a little bit
Sure.
because one thing that you said about your journey was asset protection. Can you kind of give us a Cole's Notes version of what we're talking about here? Because assets come in all different shapes and sizes. Maybe give me a top five, which specifically for entrepreneurs and business people listening to this podcast, what's your top five list of things that an entrepreneur should be thinking about in terms of protecting themselves?
All right. So I'm gonna do this in a little bit different way. So we'll talk about the things people need to the things they need to protect or things they need to protect from.
Okay.
Which one? I didn't quite understand your question.
Protect from.
Okay, things they need to protect from. Okay. So asset protect, you're basically protecting your assets from, I call it predators, right? There's always the wolves at bay. You want to keep the wolves at bay. You got predators out there. The predators are many. But basically, for the most part, they come in two forms. Their predators are litigation and taxation. That's the two main things that's going to steal your wealth. Of course, taxation comes in a million varieties. A lot of the taxation things you can't do anything about. Like property tax or any consumption type taxes, you can't do anything about that. Income tax and the various forms of income definitely can be protected against. There's lots of different loopholes and ways to minimize taxes. I think one of the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs make is not taking tax optimization seriously because, like, I give you an example. I had a client a couple of years ago, American guy with an Australian wife living in California, and they were going to move to Costa Rica. They had a coaching business they're making right about $1 million a year, and they were paying close to $500,000 a year in tax, and they wanted to optimize. And I won't, unless you really want, we can go into this as like a case study if you'd like, but I don't need to go in depth. But basically, they didn't know any better. They had already moved to Costa Rica. They were paying $500,000 a year in tax, netting out $500,000. And it took us about 4 or 5 months, but a series of consultations and doing some restructuring, and we got them to zero tax.
Zero.
We got them to zero tax. And so and I'm talking legally, okay? I'm not talking about
zero is good. You're talking my language, Bobby. I like zero.
We got them to zero. They didn't even know it was a possibility because, first of all, like, they had multiple things to consider. American guy, that's one country, one region. Australian wife, that's another factor to consider. Living in California and the U.S. adds another variable, and they moved to Costa Rica. So that's 5 different variables in the picture, right? And so anytime you add, especially different countries, into your taxation, it creates a lot of variables and a lot of complications, and they couldn't find anybody that knew what to do. Now, of course, there are like PwC or the big 5 accounting firms. They deal with that, but they only deal with that for billion-dollar companies, not small entrepreneurs. So they got referred to me. It took us a few months of consulting and restructuring, but they got to zero. If they had not taken a proactive approach, they came to me, I don't know, 4 years ago, probably, maybe 5 years at this point. If they had not come to me and they continued, because they had been procrastinating, if they continued to procrastinate for 4 more years, that's an extra $2 million they would have not had in their pocket that they do now. Yeah. Now, as an entrepreneur, so I'm going to get on my philosophical soapbox for a minute, but my viewpoint is entrepreneurs are the economic engine of the world. Entrepreneurs are what makes the world a better place, full
I
stop.
would agree. Yep.
Nothing happens until an entrepreneur comes up with an idea and executes it.
Takes
And
the risk to disrupt an
yeah,
industry and then executes it.
yep. So if that doesn't happen, then nothing really happens, right? Like, sure, we've got huge multinational companies that sell products and services, but they all started as an entrepreneurial venture at some point, right? And the vast majority of the workforce works for entrepreneurial businesses, small to mid-sized businesses. And if that couple had not finally stopped procrastinating on their tax optimization, they would have been 2 million less rich. Well, forget about being 2 million less rich. What really happens if you're an entrepreneur, and is exactly what's happened with them, is they go out, R&D on their products and services, hiring more people, improving the economy because they're hiring more people. They're giving more jobs.
Yeah.
They're improving their product. They're doing different things. They're investing in other businesses to help other businesses, right? So my view is I want my clients, and this is why I do what I do. And this is the thing that
This
I
is the big
realized
picture.
back in 2006, why I hated my old business and why I wanted to do something new is I formulated that my core purpose is to help entrepreneurs keep as much money in their own pocket as possible, because entrepreneurs are hands down the best allocators of capital by far. Government is nothing more than sand in the wheels of progress. They're terrible allocators of capital.
Yeah.
20 years ago, you'd get some pushback on that if you say like government's a terrible allocator of capital. I don't think there's anybody left on earth that believes government's a good allocator of capital anymore. Like, nobody thinks I'm really happy where my tax money goes. Like, nobody thinks that. Like, I'm super, super excited to spend that money on investigating the mating rituals of pigeons on cocaine in Thailand. Like,
Yeah. Let's get a subcommittee of a subcommittee of a subcommittee.
yeah, nobody believes that's reasonable. So I think one of the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs make is not proactively doing tax optimization, because you're only hurting your business and you're hurting yourself. And almost every entrepreneur out there could use tax optimization strategies to keep more money in their pocket. So I know that was an extremely long-winded answer of your original.
No, it's all good. Your point of, saving money, making money, whatever it is, reallocating that capital, hiring more people, which also pay income tax. They buy things. There's goods and services tax on that. I mean, that is what causes economies to, the flywheel of an economy engine just keeps running because entrepreneurs are putting the fuel into it, right?
And the less fuel they have, meaning the more tax they pay, it's, out of balance, right? They pay more tax, they have less fuel, right? So the more fuel they have, the more that economy grows. Government doesn't really, like, if you look on, the statistical data, of course, government spending is part of the economic engine. But the reality is that's in most cases, that's not real economic growth. Like, it doesn't really benefit people. It's kind of like there's an old analogy I read a long time ago. It's the toll booth analogy. Have you ever heard this?
No.
So you got the toll booth analogy. You're driving down the highway and you have to slow down. All the traffic backs up, slows down, because you got to stop and pay your whatever. Let's say $1 for the toll booth. And then traffic speeds back up and goes on. So it slows the progress just for the sake of paying the toll. Well, the toll booth operator analogy is the toll literally only pays for the salary of the toll booth operator and the operation of the toll itself. So we don't actually create any additional progress. We only take money away from people to pay for a job that wasn't necessary to begin with. And that's the way I look at government in general. It's kind of like the toll booth operator analogy. In very many situations, most government agencies and processes is like a toll booth operator. We only pay tax to pay for somebody to do something we don't really need. Um, so
Well said.
you asked
Yeah, well
about
said.
like asset protection. We went on the tax side. The other side of that is litigation, and that's there's an unlimited array of possibilities, and everybody kind of thinks, "Oh, well, I'm not going to get sued. Like, come on, I just have this little landscaping business and a couple of rental houses, and
If you're a successful entrepreneur, it's not a case of if you're going to be sued, but when.
yeah, it's when." And and a lot of lawsuits amount to nothing. You nothing happens, or if you have some business insurance, they don't sue you beyond the limits of the insurance, because there's an entire legal industry of parasitic lawyers out there that do nothing that go for your insurance limits.
Yeah.
So sorry if you're a class action lawyer listening to this. I would apologize to you, but it's not an apology. Like, you're a parasite. That's just all there is to it. You're not much better than government in that scenario. You're just creating problems and creating an industry that doesn't need to exist. But legal protections gives you the ability to have more control over the direction of that litigation. Whereas if you don't have any legal protections in place and you get sued for $1 million, and let's say your business is a sole proprietorship and you own 2 or 3 rental houses in your own name, and you own your own home in your own name, you're fully exposed. Fully exposed. You get sued for $1 million and you lose, you're going to pay the claim. Literally, they'll either take your business, they'll put a lien on your rental house, they'll put a lien on your primary residence, they'll go sweep your bank account, whatever they need to do to satisfy that judgment. So I look at asset protection planning kind of like an old Scottish medieval castle. So think about like what's an old movie? Like Braveheart. Everyone's seen Braveheart.
Yeah, of course.
Think about a castle from the Braveheart movie, or what's that? Game of Thrones. That's the other one, right? So think about like a castle in Game of Thrones. What does every castle have? They have a moat, right? Every castle has a moat around it, and then you got the drawbridge that keeps people funneling in through one door, and it's a barrier. And then you got a big wall, and then you usually have an inner wall and then a tower, right? So I consider asset protection planning, it's like building a castle around your wealth being that inner tower. And so there's kind of layers to it. Obviously, the higher risk you are, the more layers you should put into place. But if you're an entrepreneur or an investor, not only entrepreneurs, you could have a high paying corporate job and you've got a big like real estate portfolio. I've had clients.
Doesn't take much.
Too, and they still have exposure. And so you've got to put to me, the first layer of that is privacy. And that's what I mean by that is keeping your name out of public record associated with the assets you own. So that's like, for example, you own your own house. Your house is in your name. Anybody can pull up a public record and see, oh, look, Garrett lives at 123 Main Street, right? All that stuff is public record. So, like, at the very fundamental sense, you want to have as little of your name in public record associated with a piece of, or with an asset, a piece of real estate, something that's registered in public record, because all of those public record things, they're public record. Anybody can pull them up. Anybody can go. If I can guess that you live in Winnipeg, I can go on the real estate search there and just do a search of your name and find the home you live in. I can see the approximate tax, at least the tax value of your home. Maybe I don't see the real value, but I can at least see the tax value. And then I can go pull up, if I want to, it's a little bit tricky, but it's doable. I could pull up a credit report on you, and I could see, in most cases, I'd be able to see if you had a mortgage on that house. So let's say you had a house worth $1 million, and I pull your credit report, and I see you've got a mortgage of $300,000. Well, right off the bat, I know you got at least a $700,000 net worth. If I'm suing you for $1
Yeah.
million, I know I can go after you for at least 700, right?
Yeah.
And let's take, like, the example I always use is, let's imagine you have a party at your house, whatever the party is, right? Like, I don't know. You love NFL and you got a Super Bowl party. Super Bowl's coming this weekend, right? So you have a Super Bowl party at your house. You got a bunch of friends over. One of your buddies gets drunk, drives home, kills somebody on the way home. Well, hopefully that doesn't happen, but you don't have any control after that guy walks out of your house after your Super Bowl party, right? And and if he kills somebody, the family of the victim, they're going to go up the chain. They're going to sue him and they're going to sue you because you're the one that gave them, too much beer at your house. Well,
Right.
if I were the lawyer of that claimant, the very first thing I would do is I would do a record search on you to see if there's, like a pot of gold at the end of that rainbow. Like,
Right.
am I going to, if I sue you, is it even worthwhile? And so I'm going to do a public record search and see, all right, well, it looks like Garrett's got a house with $700,000 in equity and looks like he drives a Mercedes S550. So I know how much that car is worth approximately. I see on his credit report, I can see he's got an Amex Platinum card. So I know about how much he has to make to get an Amex Platinum card. Okay, I can see in another record search, he owns 5 rental houses over in, Toronto or whatever. I can see that.
Right.
Okay. So I might go back to my claimant at that point as the lawyer. I might go back to the claimant and say, hey, I'd love to take this case for you. Why don't we do this on a contingency? So for listeners that don't know what that means, a contingency lawsuit is if I'm the lawyer and I'm representing you and we sue somebody and we win $1 million, if it's a 50% contingency, I basically get paid on success of collecting on that judgment. So I would get 500,000 and you get 500,000 if we win and we collect. So if I were the lawyer in this situation, I would do the record search and I would go back to my client and say, listen, this guy's a piece of cake. I just put liens on his houses and stuff like that. No problem. So yeah, I'll take this on a contingency. Great. Let's do that. But if I go do the record search and I don't find your name anywhere on anything, well, I'm going to go back to my client and say, I'd love to take this case for you. I'm going to need a $10,000 or a $20,000 retainer to get started. And very often the privacy shield itself is enough to wash away the frivolous litigation, because the lawyer is going to go to the client and say, I need 10 or 20,000. The client might say, yikes, I don't have 10 or 20 grand to pay the lawyer. And even then, it's a risk that I may not win, and maybe I've got to give this lawyer more money to keep going. It might cost me 50,000. Yeah, never mind. I'm not interested.
Bobby, I love doing these podcasts. Yeah, I mean, your agent reached out, and I'm really enjoying this, and we're going to keep going. But I just wanted to make the point because I'm shaking my head right now. I mean, if you're on YouTube and you're watching me, I'm writing down like pages and pages of notes here. You're absolutely right. And I'll add to that. Yes, they see a pot of gold, but they're going to say, well, okay, maybe it's not going to be able to go all the way through, but we know that this guy has enough equity that he's probably going to want to settle out. At least I can get you something. You still become a target just because you chose to be proud enough to put your name on title of your home instead of putting it into an LLC or whatever things that I'm going to be asking about now in my next question. Right? So how can we, I know we don't have 5 hours and I don't want you to give away all your secret sauce, but just from sort of asset protection for dummies, ABCs, like what are some strategies that people use on a very bare bones basis, just so we can kind of get the understanding for the level of education for this podcast?
So the moat is privacy. So that's you get everything out of your own name. And that is things like, just imagine anything you own that has value. You don't want it titled in your name in any way, shape, or form. Okay.
Okay.
Like, for example, your home. your primary residence, your investment properties, if you got a taxable brokerage account. I say a taxable brokerage account. If you're, in Canada, you got a TSP or something like that. You can't do anything about
Sure.
that. Or if you're American, you got a 401k. You can't do anything about that. But I'm talking about taxable brokerage accounts. You don't own it in your own name. Businesses, like sole proprietorships, are for 9-year-olds with lemonade stands. Like that's like if you're still running your business as a sole proprietorship as an adult, I mean, are you even an adult? Like seriously. Like
I love that quote. I'm laughing. I'm writing this down. This is going in the intro.
Like for real, sole proprietorships are for 9-year-olds with a lemonade stand. There's no reason I don't care. Like if you have a landscaping business, and you're running that as a sole proprietor, I don't care if you've got 5 yards you mow. It's crazy to do that because you could have one of your employees out there drive over a rock and it slings a rock over and hits their 2-year-old in the forehead and injures them. You could have the homeowner's 2-year-old could be out in the yard, which they shouldn't be while they're mowing the grass, but guess what? They still do it, right? And that rock hits them in the forehead and injures this 2-year-old kid. You're going to get sued. And if you're a sole proprietorship, they're going to come after all of your personal assets. It's insane to run your business through a sole proprietorship. Absolutely insane.
Now, let me stop you there for a second, Bobby, because I'm also in the landscaping space with my property management company. And, I play ice hockey with a bunch of insurance agents. And the insurance for landscaping companies and roofers, and it's just horrendous, right? And I see so many people, which is why I'm doing this in the landscaping space, mid-20s, early 20s, slap a sticker on a truck. They think it's a good idea. This is probably early Bobby in his 20s, right? And all of a sudden, you've got 50, 60 contracts because you're a hard worker and you're making $200 to $300,000. And you still have this business in your name. You might not even have insurance because you're just like, hey, this is great. You're 21 years old. What do you know, right?
This makes me shudder to think.
It's true.
It happens all the time. It happens.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, insurance, first of all, especially if you have liability like that, if you're doing any home services, meaning you're physically going to someone else's home, you're insane to not have insurance. You're absolutely insane to not do that. Because you as individually, or your team or your employees or representative of your company are going onto somebody's house property, any type of home service, landscaping, roofing, windows, gutters, pressure washing, remodeling, like plumbing, electrical, any of that stuff. You got to have insurance because the liability associated with burning somebody's house down is crazy. Or injuring somebody, even worse, injuring somebody.
Your life could literally be over.
I've got a couple of examples I'll give you for this, by the way. I have some bad examples I'll give you of what not to do. But liability insurance isn't the only thing that's going to protect you. Because have you, like, I'm asking you directly, have you ever made an insurance claim for anything? Have you ever had to make one? Like, have you ever had to deal with the adjuster to make a claim on something?
Yes. So we manage 600 properties up here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and we have a group insurance policy. So that means our owners are paying into this to get bulk purchase pricing. But I am the person that has to decide if we're going to be pursuing a claim. And the adjusters, it's a battle. So we're denying this because it was vacant for 48 hours.
Right. So what is an insurance adjuster's sole job?
To deny the claim.
To not pay the claim. And it's crazy too because you have a claim, in your house or your rental property or whatever. And this adjuster comes out with the happiest, nicest, friendliest face. Garrett, I'm here to help you. Let's get this thing fixed for you. I'm here to make everything right for you, right? They They train them in that way. I'm 100% sure there's a training program to make adjusters lie to your face, okay? Because their entire job is to not pay your claim. The whole thing is, if you've ever read an insurance contract, and I know you have, but listeners, if you've ever read an insurance contract, there's a reason why there's 73 pages of fine print.
Yeah.
Every line on that fine print is an excuse to not pay your claim. Everything on there is an exception to your claim. That's the whole point of this contract, is for them to find a reason. So I'll give you a great example of this. I had a client come to me in my consulting practice, not through Business Anywhere. My consulting practice is one thing. Business Anywhere is an offshoot of my consulting practice, but it's my bigger company now because, we do a lot with it now and it's kind of blown up. But through my consulting practice, this guy came to me from an asset protection standpoint. He was in Texas. He had 10 rental houses, and he was referred to me, and he said, "Hey, I want to talk about developing an asset protection strategy for, he had a business and he had 10 rental houses and his primary residence and all this stuff." He made pretty good money. I think he was in some home service type business. And he came to me, and I just, like, jokingly in the conversation in the beginning, I asked him, I said, "How do you own these properties?" And he goes, "Oh, I own them all in my own name." He said, "I was told by my advisor, I don't need to have an LLC for each property. I just need insurance on each property." And I said, that's a huge risk. He hadn't told me the whole reason of his call at this point. This is why it makes it kind of funny. I said, "This is a huge risk. Like, you never know when you're going to have some meth head decide to be entrepreneurial in the kitchen of your rental house and start making meth in your kitchen, and then the house blows up and kills somebody, and then you're going to be exposed across all your properties." And I'm not kidding. The guy, we were on a video call just like this, on a Google Meet video call. The guy, deadpan, straight face, looks at me and he goes, "That's not funny." And I'm like, "Okay, so why?" And he goes, "Because that's exactly what happened."
Oh, wow.
I'm like, "For real?" And he goes, "Yeah." He said, "I had somebody in one of my rental houses had a meth lab in the kitchen, and the house blew up and hurt some people in the house. And now I got sued for, I don't know, a ton of money." But guess what? He found out the hard way. Guess what? Property insurance, or guess what that insurance doesn't cover?
Meth labs?
Illegal activity.
Yeah.
They don't cover any illegal activity. That's one of their 7 million lines of fine print, is they don't cover if there's illegal activity. So his insurance company denied the claim. The family of the dead person sued for, I don't even remember, it's been a few years, but $1 gazillion dollars. I do remember he lost all of his rental properties, though. They basically took all the properties. And I think they also stuck a lien on his primary residence, because there was some homestead exemption in Texas, so they couldn't foreclose it. But he had a lien stuck on his primary residence, stripping most of the equity out.
And that means he can't sell it and he can't refinance.
Oh, right? He can definitely sell it.
With a lien? Well, yeah, I guess.
But you can definitely sell it.
Pennies on a dollar.
They're going to satisfy the lien, before he gets his money.
Yeah, I'm dealing with one right now. I can't divulge too many details, but basically the insurance company denied a claim from one of my clients because their property was on fire because the building next door burnt. So figure that one out, right? So they're talking about suing. So it's absolutely crazy.
They'll probably try to subjugate the claim on the other property, but then you got to deal with the fine print on the other property.
But they're denying it. The word they used was deny. They're not even going to try to subrogate, right? They're basically washing their hands of it. So it's brutal.
I know, but that's their whole. So this is not at a business perspective, but I have a condo in North Carolina, and I had a claim on my condo, and I fought it for 2 years to get the insurance company to pay the claim. And it was denied. And finally, I'm pretty good with this stuff. I'm not the average homeowner, if you know what I mean. and they were still denying me. And I was, I pulled up the HOA contract and I pulled up the insurance contract and I wrote them this long letter citing each paragraph, like that was related to this incident, because they kept trying to deny it for, I don't want to go into the details, but they were denying it for various reasons. And I said, well, actually, you can't deny it because of paragraph whatever, 1A, line 3C, or whatever. And finally, after 2 years, they finally paid out on the claim. So
Wow.
sometimes you have to fight them because it's literally their job to not pay your claim. But if you can prove to them using their own contract that they do owe out on the claim, they'll pay it. But they'll still deny it in the beginning. But it's like it's a little bit like
The default.
it's their default response is to deny, and it's a little bit like just a bluff. It's like, let's just hope this guy doesn't know how to read the fine
Well, it's
print.
percentages, right? They're going to get the percentage of people who are going to walk away because they don't know any better. And
They don't know any better. They're not going to go hire a lawyer and pay. Like, I did talk to a real estate attorney in that town, and I said, take a look at this for me. Can you do anything? He goes, I can do it. He said, but you're going to pay me almost as much as the claim in legal fees. And I was like, you know what? I'll just use my own legal resource. I mean, I'm an international tax lawyer, but I'm not I'm not on the bar in the U.S. I went to law school in Europe, so I'm not like a licensed attorney in the U.S. So I couldn't go represent myself. Well, I mean, I can't represent myself without an attorney, but not as an attorney. I can't represent myself, but I do understand like how to do these things. So I am kind of above average in this regard, and they still denied my claim for 2 years. It was crazy.
Well, that's the way they do things. When we talk about taxes, without shortcuts, what variables matter first, right? Because I've seen some of your talks, citizenship, family ties, physical residency. You talked about that couple there, California, mind management, banking access. Like what's the variables that matter first out of those? All of them?
They all matter. They all matter. I mean, there's a long checklist of things that matters. But the first thing, the kind of whenever I take on a new client, so let me rewind just for a second. From this side of my business, my consulting side of my business, when I take on a client who wants like tax and company structure consulting, I work mostly with location independent entrepreneurs that either live outside of their home country or have business outside of their home country. Because once you add in these multiple variables, it gets complicated, and usually your like regular accountant or your regular business lawyer, it's outside of the scope of what they understand how to do. So this is kind of my narrow niche of what I do. So with that kind of premise, when I take on a new client, the first thing that matters is as an individual, where is your tax residency? Because just registering a company in another country doesn't necessarily solve your problem. Like, for example, if you're Canadian living in Canada, registering a company in BVI doesn't really help you because Canada has what's called CFC rules, or controlled foreign corporation rules. So just because you have a company in BVI and BVI doesn't tax their companies doesn't mean anything, because Canadian CFC rules say if you still have controlling interest in that BVI company as a Canadian tax resident, all the profits from that company are going to be taxed to you as an individual in Canada, whether you distribute the profits or not. So your tax residency really matters, and variables like CFC rules in the country where you have tax residency can make a difference. So, like, for example, Serbia is a country that does not have CFC rules. So if you're a resident of Serbia, using that example, and you register your company in BVI, let's say your company makes $1 million a year, but you only want a salary of, let's say, $50,000. Serbia is a pretty cheap place to live. So in that scenario, you would only pay tax on $50,000 of the profit you drew out of the company, and that $950 can remain tax deferred indefinitely in that company. But that's only because Serbia doesn't have controlled foreign corporation rules. Whereas if you were in Canada or Germany or a lot of the world, you would still have to pay, even if you only paid yourself the salary of 50, you'd still have to pay tax on the full million back in your home country.
Right. Yeah, we have dozens of clients who have given up their Canadian residency. So we're filing non-resident withholding tax for their rental portion.
Yep.
So I'm very familiar with it, but I can't even imagine, probably I might have hundreds of other clients that don't even know that exists. That's just the people who came to me and were proactive about knowing. So there's a whole subset of people out there that could be and should be getting advice like what you're offering.
So, I'll give you a great example because I have a ton of Canadian clients. I don't even know, probably at least 1,000 Canadian clients, maybe more. Actually, just from the consulting side, I probably have 1,000 Canadian clients. From the Business Anywhere side, I don't even know because I don't know how many clients we've got there. But if you're a Canadian who exits Canada, the Canadian tax system, you leave the country, and you don't by default become a tax resident in Canada. To your point, if you still have Canadian source income, you still have to file a non-resident return on that income. If you got rental properties or even if you had an operating business, the business still has to file a tax return. And if you get a dividend from that business, you still have to pay tax on the dividend because it's Canadian source. But anything you earn that's not Canadian source, if you're no longer a Canadian tax resident, you don't even need to tell Canada about it. You don't report it, you don't tell them anything, you don't have to pay tax on it, anything. So I have a lot of Costa Rica is a good example for this. So Costa Rica is a country, they're what I call a tier 2 country, which is a residency-based territorial tax system. Meaning if you're a resident in Costa Rica, you only pay tax on the income you earn inside the territory. So if you had a job in Costa Rica or a business or rental property or whatever, you pay tax on that in Costa Rica, but you don't pay tax on anything outside. So I have a lot of Canadians that have moved to Costa Rica, and what we do is we register them a company somewhere else based on whatever they needed for that company. But we usually structure it in such a way so the company has no company tax. So then they don't pay any tax at all on that income. They pay zero. So Costa Rican resident, but as long as the company is not registered in Costa Rica, they don't owe tax in Costa Rica. And if they've exited the Canadian tax system, they don't pay tax there either. So, and as long as the company is structured in a way where it's zero tax, then they're basically they're living completely tax-free.
Even the company, let's say corporation in Canada, you said the magic word there, is structured in such a way so it's not paying tax.
It wouldn't be a Canadian corporation. Let's put it that way.
Right. You'd have to, okay. Wow.
It definitely would not be a Canadian corporation, because if you're a Canadian corporation, you're still going to have to pay Canadian company tax.
Yeah.
So a good example of this would be if you're Canadian, we'll stick with this as a kind of a pseudo case study here. Canadian citizen, non-resident, living in Costa Rica, you could register an LLC in the U.S. Now, I want to preface this by saying it depends on the nature of the business itself. But let's say it's a virtual type business, meaning you don't have an office in the U.S., you don't have a factory, you're not physically doing your work.
No bricks and mortar.
Yeah, no brick and mortar stuff. You don't have employees where you're withholding payroll tax in the U.S. You don't have any of those connections physically in the U.S. In that scenario, you could use a U.S. LLC, because an LLC, the default tax election of a single member LLC is disregarded entity. So if you make, just for math's sake, $100,000 a year, let's say, I'm going to pick on you, Garrett. So Garrett, you own an LLC that makes $100,000 a year. You're living in Costa Rica. Well, that profit flows through to you as an individual. The LLC doesn't pay tax anyway. So you, as an individual, as an owner of a U.S. LLC, may or may not have tax based on the nature of the income from the business. So let's say you're doing coaching, consulting, info products, a SaaS business. SaaS, for those listening, if you don't know, SaaS, software as a service. Basically anything that's kind of virtual in the cloud, kind of.
You know what? I'm going to actually stop you there because I want a real case study here. Okay, so I am a resident of Canada.
Yes, I have. I'm almost finished, and then we'll do yours. In that scenario, you wouldn't pay any tax at all. You wouldn't pay any tax in the U.S. because you don't have U.S. source income. You wouldn't pay any tax in Canada because you're no longer a tax resident. You wouldn't pay any tax in Costa Rica because it's not Costa Rican source income. So if you had a software company, Canadian, living in Costa Rica, and had a software company, you could run it through like a Wyoming LLC and pay zero tax.
Yeah. Well, that's the exact scenario I was just going to say, because I have an AI implementation company, a SaaS company that I've started. It's federally registered in Canada. Maybe that's already a mistake. And the purpose of this is to gain, like, AI companies are trading right now to private equity at about 40 to 60x multiples. So you can imagine I am trying to go for a roll up because that's what something I've wanted to do for a very long time. So if this hits properly and I'm still in Canada and I get an exit of $30-40 million, I'm going to be paying out like lots, right? Are we talking about exit money as well, or just active income, or everything?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but you're still living in Canada, right?
No, I'm saying, like, maybe I'm talking to my wife tonight. We're saying, sweetheart, I think we're gonna go check out some condos in Costa Rica.
So in your scenario, I would move that company out of Canada. I mean, let's just make assumptions here. You're like, I'm moving to Canada. I'm moving to Costa Rica next week. I would move the company also before it's worth anything, before you have, let's get it out of Canada first because if you move now, you may have an exit tax. Okay. Depends on the value of the assets, and especially with private companies, you can really play around with the value. Like, you would never in a million years do your exit tax and calculate the value of that company on a 50x multiple. That would be insane.
No, why would you do that? Yeah.
But if you were to say, let's say you're, I don't want to ask because maybe you don't want to share it, but let's assume you're either pre-revenue or you have some MRR, but not that much, like you're still in the growth phase. So you probably have a zero valuation at this point anyway.
Correct. Yeah.
So I would, if you want to do that, I would move the company to the US, move you to Costa Rica, and then let's say a year or two, whenever you sell this thing, you're no longer a Canadian tax resident. You wouldn't owe anything in Canada, and if you sell it for $30 million, you wouldn't owe anything in the U.S. either, because the business didn't have any U.S. source income in that sense.
Right.
And the business happened outside of Costa Rica, so you wouldn't have any tax obligation in Costa Rica either. So you could do all this tax free, but you have to physically move yourself out of the U.S. and move the company out of Canada, and you have to move the company out of Canada as well.
Wow.
In your scenario, though, it depends. Are you trying to raise money for it?
No, I mean it's okay. I don't want to say it's pre-revenue, but it's cooking, right? Like it's humming along. I'm doing webinars. People are starting to sign up. Like, it's a perfect opportunity.
You're starting to see some MRR.
Yeah, and it's funny that, your agent reaches out a week and a half ago, and now I had time today to jump on a pod, and all of a sudden I'm writing notes because I'm learning. So I have other associates who are doing the thing in Wyoming, so it's interesting. We'll have to talk off in the green room.
I mean, our other company, businessanywhere.io, that's what we do. We're a registered agent in all 50 states. We do company formation, registered agent service, virtual mailbox, bank account opening, bookkeeping, tax filing, all your company compliance. I mean, that's what Business Anywhere does.
Okay. This is, I know we were joking about turning this into a Rogan style 2.5 hour podcast, but I think we'll stop it there. Maybe we might do a part two, because I have a question I'd like to ask you, and it's interesting. I ask this question of every single guest, and I always get a different answer, but you're going to be a little bit unique because you're living in, 3 different places. You didn't really have a job. You were always an entrepreneur. So, Bobby, this is the question. This is the Investing to Win podcast. How do you define success, and what does winning look like for you?
Yeah, I love this question. Actually, I freaking love it. I literally just had this conversation 2 days ago with one of my best friends who's going through like some struggles in his business and life. And he made a comment to me. He made a comment like, I'm tired of feeling like I just keep failing and failing and failing. And I said, well, you need to change your mindset about what the definition of success means. To me, success is not the traditional version of success that, you read about, you see on Instagram, right? Like that Instagram version of success is sitting on the hood of the Lamborghini, with 3 hot girls wearing the Rolex and all that stuff. To me, that's a bullshit vision of success. For me, success is if I'm in the process of achieving my goals and I can actively see I'm better than yesterday, Bobby. It's taken me a long time to get to this place, by the way, because you mentioned, what do you call it? Imposter syndrome. We all feel it. We all feel it. I feel it sometimes too, especially like I'm going to go to my retreat in a couple weeks and there's guys there. I got one of my favorite clients, one of my best friends. He's one of my best clients. And the guys started a company 3 months ago. Okay. 3 months ago. 3 freaking months ago. Last month, he did $700,000 in revenue. In 3 months. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? You always have that imposter syndrome. Like, what am I doing wrong? Why can't I do that in 3 months, But imposter syndrome is a real thing, but I always have to like reel myself in and realize the only thing that matters is, am I better than yesterday, Bobby? And am I making improvements on yesterday, Bobby? Like, is my health getting better? Am I going to the gym regularly? Am I eating healthy? Am I going on walks? Am I getting am I taking care of my body and myself? Am I taking care of my mindset? Am I doing the active things in my business I know that moves the needle for me? So for me, that's all I look at is, did I do better than yesterday? Am I improving on yesterday, Bobby? For me, I'm a success. If I am a lazy ass and I lay on the couch and eat Oreos, watching Netflix all night, and I wake up the next morning and I'm like, yeah, that was not a good day. Like, I'm not better than yesterday, Bobby, if that's what I did.
Yeah.
So.
Amazing. That's one of the best answers I've heard. Because we always, we can't stop ever trying to get better, and you mentioned it, the high school quarterback, right? Homecoming king. I know of people and know people who have a very large exit. I'm sure you do, whether it's 100 million, 300 million, whatever. And then they're lost. They become alcoholics. They get addicted to drugs because they've made it. But really what they should be doing is looking at the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. Otherwise, you always have to be trying to be a better version of yourself.
And that next thing doesn't have to mean if I had a $50 million exit, it doesn't mean my next thing has to be a $100 million exit.
No, just the next thing.
My next thing could be, I want to climb, all the 14,000 foot mountains in the world.
Yep.
My next thing could be, I want to do a motorcycle trip, from Alaska to the Patagonia, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a monetary thing, and it doesn't have to be anything that extreme either. My next thing could be, my daughter's a singer, by the way, and I don't want to give any details to that, but my daughter's a singer, and my next thing could be, I want to go on tour with her and go to all of her shows next year.
Right.
Like that could be like I can't do that now because I'm busy running my business. I try to go to a few of her shows every year. But if I sold my business, maybe my next thing is I really want to go and just go on tour with her and see every show.
The important thing is having a next thing. How about we can leave it at that? Have a next thing. Always try to be better. Be a better version of yourself. Be a good person and level up.
Yep. Amen.
All right. Well, thanks so much for hanging out with me. It's been a pleasure. We'll put your business and how people can get in touch with you. I know after people listen to this, you're going to get a ton of people asking, and I'm going to be referring some personal clients to you as well. So thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Garrett. Cheers.
Yeah, you too.